Who were these figures? Who was crossing the path of our ship? And why was the water separating just for them? We will find out everything in today's incident.
The incident that I'm going to share now may be hard for many of you to believe. The context is so strange. Let's dive right into the mystery. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I apologize because I want to share my experience without revealing my name and identity. Although the name is hidden, the horror of the incident is no less.
Hearing various spooky and strange incidents on your show, I thought most supernatural incidents happen in secluded or unpopulated places. And in that respect, where else can you find solitude like the sea? Sailors of thousands of ships floating on the vast waters of the world face various small and big incidents every day. These incidents are very normal, can be said to be routine in our sailor's life.
Among those who spend their lives at sea, there is probably not a single sailor who has never encountered a miracle or a strange situation. How many mysteries are hidden at the bottom of that blue water or in the emptiness of the horizon? Without further ado, let's get straight to the bone-chilling experience. Listen to my story. The time was August-September 2012. I was working as a third officer on a ship at the time. Our job was to load gypsum, the raw material for making cement, from Sutani Port in Thailand to a port in Vietnam. I can't remember the name of the port I was going to. It would take 6 days to reach the destination.
4 days passed by very naturally. On the 5th day, at 12 a.m., we handed over the duty second officer and went to the cabin. After handing over the duty, we went to the cabin. It was around 1:30 to 2:30 a.m. Suddenly, my cabin received a call from the bridge, from where the entire ship is operated. They only said, "Emergency situation." I quickly went to the bridge and saw the chief officer, second officer, junior officer were all present.
I asked what happened. The second officer replied that the ship's speed had suddenly started to slow down. At first, he thought it was due to changes in wind, current, or tide, which was very normal. But after a while, things did not seem normal. The ship's speed gradually decreased from 14 knots to 7 to 8 knots. He called the engine room to find out if there was any problem with the engine, or if the engine RPM had decreased for some reason. But the engine control room said that everything was normal. They also checked whether the fishing net was stuck in the engine propeller. But surprisingly, everything was normal. Engine, navigation, weather, no problem anywhere. Meanwhile, the ship's speed gradually dropped to 2.60 knots. The ship's captain was called in advance, and after a while, a very old man came and first asked what was the status of the engine. The chief officer told him that everything was normal with the engine. Then he went to the chart room with the second officer and checked our passage plan. Although these things are checked several times before the ship leaves, then they are checked and finalized. It was pitch dark outside. He held onto the railing for a while, trying to figure out what was going on. Then, when he entered the bridge, an unknown shadow of terror crossed his face. With trembling hands, he called the engine room and whispered, "Keep the engine running, but don't make any noise, at a very low RPM." We nodded our heads in agreement, as if entranced. He looked at us and said in a strangely cold voice, "Don't panic, but be very, very careful." Finally, he looked blankly and muttered, "Everything will be fine. Now just call on Allah. He is the only hope." Then suddenly, he pointed with a trembling hand towards the front of the ship. As we looked towards it, our breaths were almost caught in astonishment and fear. I saw, through the thick darkness, a vast procession of white figures, passing in orderly fashion in front of the ship. To the right or to the left, as far as the eye could see, there was only that line of mysterious white figures. And in the midst of that endless white, a strange, bone-chilling yellow light was shining, as if some unsatisfied spirit from beyond was staring at us. The most thrilling sight was towards the water. In the direction the white procession was passing, the turbulent waters of the sea, as if by some invisible command, moved aside and respectfully made way for them. Our blood ran cold with fear at the sight of this miraculous surrender of nature, but we had nothing to do but stare, spellbound. Thus, each moment of terror seemed like an eternity. At one point, the dawn light began to break in the eastern sky, and in that dim light, the mysterious white line disappeared like a banquet. Just then, the ship shook violently, as if some supernatural force had broken its bonds and started moving again. As the ship's speed increased, everyone's sweat and fever broke out. The chief officer then called the engine room at the captain's behest. He normalized his voice somewhat and ordered, "Emergency situation withdrawn, and now everything should be run as normal." Exactly 2 days after that incident, we arrived at the Vietnamese port and dropped anchor. There was only whispering around the ship. The crew was exchanging various fictional explanations for that night's strange experience. But the most surprising thing was that the captain himself kept his mouth shut about it. Unable to suppress my curiosity, I asked him several times later to explain the events of that night, but each time he maintained a deep, mysterious silence, as if it were a forbidden chapter, one that was forbidden to be spoken of. What he actually saw or knew remains an unknown mystery to this day. After that incident, I spent another 3 months with the haunting memory of that ship, and then finally returned home with that unsolved mystery in my heart. Even though the captain didn't tell me anything that day, his silence was the biggest mystery. Even today, when I think about it in private, my heart shudders. What really happened that day? What was that mysterious procession dressed in white saris? And why did the captain keep the whole thing quiet like that? The answer to that question has not been found to this day, and perhaps never will be. This was an inexplicable, haunting experience of my life. Thank you, Akarna, for sharing such a chilling incident with us. Listeners, I hope you also enjoyed listening to this strange experience.